I wanted to ask you a question real quick too about, also when you have people that you're friends with that have the same symptoms and stuff, you tend to feed off of each other
Hmm.
and you try not to. But so how do you break, like, you don't want to break off it's like an addiction. It's like an
Yep.
addiction to constantly be, how are you today? Or how are you, or, um, I don't know if you know what I'm saying. You might have done that too when you had all those symptoms. You ask people, did you have this symptom or how are you today? Or,
Unfortunately, I didn't because I didn't have anybody around me that
there wasn't
understood.
any.
I had the other thing. It's like, what's wrong with you? How come you get through this yet? It's
Oh,
just anxiety. Get over it. What's wrong with you? That's what I got.
oh. So what do you do with that? I mean, you don't want to unfriend people, but at the same time, it's hard to get away from that. Like my sister, she has a lot of issues. She's worse than me. And she was telling me one day she won't answer the phone. She just texts. And she said, I think we're feeding off each other. And
Hmm.
so she doesn't, we don't really talk a whole lot anymore, my sister and I. So, but is that what you like? What do you do? It's kind of like getting off the boards, like they were saying, but you can't get off the boards if you're friends with somebody.
Well, you can be the cheerleader though. Like if you're doing your work, you can help them move forward and realize that you don't want to be feeding what they're doing. Because, sometimes this happens with people when we are disabled with anxiety. We're getting something from it.
Mhm.
Sympathy, maybe less responsibility or whatever. And some people like that, so they're not willing to change. So they're more than happy to keep feeding, their condition. And
Mhm.
so you want to be aware of that as well. But I would suggest, if you're in groups and people are talking about, be the cheerleader.
Yeah. Well, I got
You,
out of all those groups for
yeah,
sure, but um,
be the front runner, be the one teaching them so that they can get better.
it's kind of hard because you're not that strong sometimes, and they'll come up and say something like, "Oh, well, maybe you got this wrong with you," and then all of a sudden you spiral down in this rabbit hole, like, "Oh my God, maybe it is my eyes, maybe it is something else, maybe." So you're not that strong to be that cheerleader, and you
Yeah,
get sucked down when they say that. So you're thinking, I can't talk to this person hardly anymore. I can't
yeah.
do it. And I have cut off people before, um, like what I was telling Joey that that acquaintance in the summer that I can't even hardly say the word. She did herself in, whatever. But
Mm,
when she did that, I really spiraled
yeah,
because I had to cut her off months before because no matter what I said as a cheerleader to her, nothing worked.
yeah, yeah. And
She was so miserable and she wouldn't believe it was her anxiety.
Yeah.
yeah,
She kept
that's a
saying, I've got
common
two
problem.
autistic girls. I know what anxiety is. This is not anxiety. This is,
Yeah.
and then that made me think, oh my God, am I going to get like this? Am I going to be like her? Am I going to be mentally tortured? And my brain just goes there.
Yeah. And that's pattern behavior, which we can change, right?
Yeah. With the
Yeah.
right containment statements and,
Yeah.
and thoughts. But
And experience. I mean, as you start to make progress and you see your symptoms diminish, you will get that experience to say, okay, this is what this is. I mean, that happened with me. My story, if you remember, I was talking with Bart and I would call him every second day. Bart, I'm doing all the right things and my symptoms are still here. It's got to be wrong. No, no, got to give your body time. And he held me, to that window of time. And as I got closer, I did start to see some symptoms change and I knew, okay, he was right. So, working with Stacy can give you that ongoing reassurance. But the thing is, we have to be the ones to hold
to
ourselves
do it.
accountable to not run down those worry trails.
And I told Stacy too, I said, all that I've been doing, the summer hit. He said, look, he showed me you were doing really pretty good in May. Here's you were 75%, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, when June hit, my daughter, she has health anxiety and she's a mess and she depends on me a lot. Um, and so she had to have surgery the first time. And so it was a nightmare for me emotionally because I just couldn't deal with it. And then when my friend did that and everything, I just went down. And then my dog and I, I got scared and I still am because I feel like I've gotten worse. So what happens when you know that you've been a little bit better and then you spiral back down and you're worse again?
Well, you have
It's
good
like,
reason. You have to look at your reasons why you spiral down. I mean, because this is a cause and effect situation, isn't it?
Yeah. Keep a stress journal.
Yeah. Stress goes up, symptoms
yeah,
go. Yeah. Stress comes
And I,
down,
I
we feel
I
better.
remember Jim saying that, and I did start that. I'm so bad at journals, though. I would start it and then I would stop it, and
Yeah.
it would be just really hard. And even the days that I had fairly good days, my symptoms are 24/7, but unless I'm like laying down or in a car or sitting down. But I mean, it's like I have to write down, hey, you had a pretty good day today. You were probably maybe at a 6 or 5 or and then people say, well, if you concentrate too much on it and everything, that's just telling your brain you're still in danger. So that's why you're getting worse. And I think, what do you do? That's the thing. I mean, I want to hurry up and let other people talk, but I wanted to ask you too. That's the thing I struggle with. I get out every day and I go into a grocery store or something for exposure. And I'm okay with that now. I mean, I have symptoms they're like, but it's like everybody says you need to do something every day. You need to do this, because you've got to expose your brain to let your brain know that you're safe in order to get rid of these symptoms. Your brain has to have safety. And as long as it doesn't have safety, then the symptoms are going to persist. They're going to stay in a fear mode. So, what do you do? I mean, if you relax, it's hard because then you contemplate things, you think about things, but when you're out, you don't. But then sometimes some of these things trigger you if you push yourself too much. It exhausts you. So where's the fine line?
Well, there's a lot of pieces to there. It's just, I can't give you one
Where is
answer
the
that's
fine
going to answer
line?
all of that. Well, what I had to do for me is I had to, cancel all the things I was doing and focus on stress reduction, period. And, that also meant canceling family engagements, doing bare minimum in the household so I could recover. That had to be my main focus. I said to myself, I want to recover. I got to get my body settled, period. And so I did that.
But so
So
aren't you telling your brain if you
no,
can, oh, I can't go to
let's,
that birthday party, it's too
and no,
much.
let's
Aren't you
not
telling
even,
your brain it's something to fear still?
no, let's not even talk about the brain stuff because your job is to get your stress down. As you get your stress down, the fear centers of the brain will start to calm down and you'll see things more clearly. It's not
Okay.
because you're not programming your brain to be afraid of things if you think about it that way. What you're doing is your job is to reduce your stress, period. Number one. And then also in when you're reducing your stress, you don't want to be allowing yourself to run down emotional roller coasters because that while you're
And
resting
that's
your
what's
body.
hard because when you're resting your body, that's where your brain, your memories go and
Well, yeah, but this is where when you're dealing with your underlying factors, you can address those so they're not running
address.
down those trails, right?
Right.
Because if they're resolved, there's nothing to run down. Like when they turn at the historical events, you remember them, but there's no emotional pull, which means you don't
Yeah.
have to be running down them. And that's why dealing with the underlying factors is so important, especially with
Yeah.
unresolved trauma stuff. Because if we don't deal with that stuff, it just runs in the background constantly. And that's
Okay.
why we want to get rid of that mind chatter because we want to get to the place where when we are healthy and we had some downtime, we'd be thinking of pleasant stuff, fun things to do, all that. But when we've been struggling with anxiety disorder, the brain runs down oh, I'm stuck, I'm never going to get better, and how come this is happening, and maybe this symptom isn't right, and we just worry, 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 worry. And
Worry.
of course, what do? You get stuck. Worry
Yeah.
keeps stress up, stress keeps worry going, and away we go. So we're the ones that have to say, no, I'm not doing that no more. This isn't a brain thing. This is
Hmm.
my will now. I am not going to let myself run down those trails.
I do that. I go, I'm not going to go there today. I'm just not going to go there.
Yeah,
And I think
today.
about you sometimes because you know what you say, about not going there and just
Yep,
being right there in the moment. Why are you thinking about tomorrow? Why are you thinking about dying in the next month or two or five
yep,
or 10 years? What does it matter? Today you're here. This is today.
yep, exactly. And this is where, again, dealing with our underlying factors is helpful because we don't spend all that time ruminating about all those fears, right? Because
Hmm.
we've addressed them. They're not issues anymore, but they remain issues if they're not addressed.
Well, if I could stay off grieving about my dog, maybe Stacy and I can start that next time.
And I just want to raise
But
this too. One of the things we notice in sessions is it's easy for the session to get distracted
it
onto
is.
the current problem and symptom, which
Yeah,
means we really don't get to the stuff we need to get to resolve
that's
it
right.
all. Yeah.
And I
So,
realize that too when we're in that process,
yeah.
and I'll try to move it back.
Yeah.
I'll realize it. Just like a minute ago, I was off on something else when I was talking to you, and then I went back to it. You realize that you're going off the deep end or the trail.
Yep. Yep. Because when we contain ourselves and when we focus on rest, the body has to recover. Has no choice because we're taking the fire away from the fire, right? And so that's what my goal was. Jim, I'm just going to focus on resting. Nothing else matters. I don't care what's going on. Rest, rest. And then,
So is it okay to when you're resting, like if like I crochet or I'll do
yep,
a number by sticker or
yep,
watching something pleasant on TV. I stay away from the news and things like that. I try to do that,
yep.
and I think I need to stay off of YouTube too,
Well,
pretty much.
yeah,
Some of
because we don't want to get emotionally engaged in things that we can't
I've got
control.
to monitor YouTube, yeah, and I'm not on Facebook hardly.
Yep,
Because I noticed that my symptoms spike. It's really weird how your brain, like, okay, you're on Facebook now. Let's see what we can do, with
yep.
these symptoms. And so I try
Go
to,
outside and enjoy nature. Nature's incredibly calming and
yeah. And
healing.
you know how that goes. I do that. I feel better, but the walking kind of makes you feel nervous because you feel
Yep,
weird. Your vision's
yep.
weird, and
Or even just
uh,
sit in your backyard if it's nice and pleasant
yeah.
instead of being on
And
Facebook and being,
sitting's hard too, but
yeah,
unless I can't sit straight up or I'll start to, my vision and stuff is weird. But they're just symptoms. I know that.
yeah,
And they're uncomfortable. But I think they'll finally give up and go away if I just say, you know what, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not. Kill me
yeah,
if you want, but I'm going to sit outside here.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I just wanted to say a lot of people or a lot of mental health professionals will use exposure therapy inappropriately. That's what happened to me. And because they don't understand the whole stress and hyperstimulation connection, how that has to be, first priority when, is getting the body back on track. And they'll just
Yeah.
expose you to your fears over and over, thinking that, the brain's going to retrain itself out of symptoms, but that's just not how it works.
Or
So,
make you, or you feel safe. And like I can, like going to the stores now is okay. My symptoms are there, but it's like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. I'm enjoying, and I actually enjoy it. I Most of the time being in a store or being out. I do better when I'm out in
yeah,
open spaces and stuff with these symptoms than I am when I'm in the house, in a bathroom, in a closet, looking in the refrigerator, things like that, turning corners and stuff. But if I'm out in the open, in stores and stuff, I do much better, which tells me that it's not something that's physiological. Because if it was, then it would be 24/7 the same symptoms.
yeah.
I mean, that's another thing you need to look at too if you want to heal and you want good containment. Think about the consistencies of your symptoms. They're not consistent. They're not consistent.
And they might not be because, as you know, hyperstimulation can cause the body to act erratically.
Act
So
erratically.
I'm not a big fan of tracking symptoms just
Yeah.
because it can be so misleading because one day you can feel good and you haven't done anything different. Just your
Yeah.
body has decided to settle. So my tracking mechanism would be overall, where's my underlying factors at? Have they come
Yeah.
down from 80 to 90% down to 40?
Yeah.
Just let the symptoms be what they are.
But if you're trying to tell yourself that there's not anything physically wrong with me, um, then you look at the consistencies of it. And it's like it doesn't make sense. Why do you feel normal in a car? Or why do you feel normal laying down? Or one minute you're okay, maybe in the shower for 5 minutes, and then the next 5 minutes you're not. Or maybe you'll be looking in the refrigerator, you're fine. Then the next time you look in the refrigerator, you're not fine. I mean, it's not consistent.
Because they're not
Yeah.
going to be. That's the nature of
No, they're not
hyperstimulation. Yeah.
because they're nervous system related.
Right. And so what I used to do when I worked with clients is I would I would rate them each time we met, but we wouldn't dwell on them. We'd go right
Now,
after the underlying factors. And then over
how
the
would you
course of,
track?
I
How,
would rate them. I'd ask the client to rate where your symptoms are. Usually we have a handful that are common, and I'd
yeah,
ask them to rate them when we start. So I'd have a good benchmark to start with. And then start of the session, how are your symptoms? What was your dizziness like? What was your trembling like? And so on. So how was your sleep? We'd rate them on a scale of 0 to 100%. And then we'd move on to the underlying factors.
yeah,
And
because you don't want to dwell on it.
over the course of time, we'd be working the underlying factors and their symptoms would be getting lighter and lighter overall, not moment by moment.
The underlining factors,
Yeah.
and that's the underlying factors. What you're talking about is the list that we make, like from 0 to 10 years old, and
No,
you talking about that? Is that underlining factors like the trauma stuff that has happened to you? Because I had to make a list of 0 to 10 or 0 to 9, then 10 to 20,
it,
21 to 30, and throughout your life, the traumas that happen.
it should be a questionnaire that the therapist does fairly soon we take you
Oh,
through
he
a
did
question
do
and
that.
answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what that uncovers is all the underlying factors and their degrees.
Okay. Did you ever do the list of the 0 to 9 and traumas and
I would
with your
do timelines
patients?
differently. I would talk with my clients through them in terms of what would happen, year by year. Then I would make a note of all of the factors, how they related to the underlying factors. So I didn't ask the person to do that by themselves. I would do it with them.
Oh,
But
yeah.
every therapist
Wow.
is different, right?
It's different. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. Well, I think I took up enough time here. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Yeah,
I
just based on our conversation, I would say that, you still have a high sensitivity for your symptoms. They're still causing you some angst and
Oh,
concern.
definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
I
That
see
would
that.
that would be a source of stress. And so, working with Stacy and help you to contain those and come to a different place where you can just accept them and not question what they are and why they're not going and all that, I think would be
Hmm.
a really big step forward.
Which I'm sure you dealt with that too, right? The questioning of why they're not gone and
Oh, totally.
why
Yeah.
they're getting worse or getting better or
Or why the new one pops up and the other one
pops
goes
up.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in real quick? I
Yeah.
so want to say something about all this. Like Janice, I completely empathize, so obviously, and I just wanted to say that if you just make it, as Jim says, stress down in time, it's gonna be just fine. But the thing is that you need to like get an understanding of, okay, obviously there's no way to like completely like have 0% stress in your life,
Yeah.
okay? So the goal is like let's say it's a cup, stress in, total stress in from all sources needs to be less from total stress out from all sources. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to understand that.
So let's say everything is like, okay, let's say 10-minute argument is like 10 stress points, let's say.
Oh,
It's
I
an
see.
imaginary scale, okay?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Grieving over your dog is like
Yeah.
150 points, okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the total stress in, the total points in need to be less than
Yeah.
the rest points per day. That's what needs to happen. Or
Yeah.
overall, you don't have to be perfect. One day you can stress a little bit more, that's fine. But overall, the trajectory and like the whole goal, like that's the number one thing, okay? Is for the total stress in needs to be less than the total stress
Less.
out.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's absolutely, and like I posted, I don't know if Jim can see it, posted a picture that kind of explains some of it. It's like the circle of valence with excitation and the calmness.
So I don't
Uh-huh.
see
And you
that.
see,
Sorry, Thivo. Don't.
you don't, it's in the chat in the call.
Okay, sorry. I didn't have the chat open. I was
You,
looking at the room there.
yeah, you click it, you have to zoom in,
Well,
you have to scroll with your
There
mouse.
we go. Yeah.
So, oh, you see that circle? Like left is negative, right is positive, top is arousal, down is calmness.
yeah.
So if you have feelings that are on the top left, that's a lot of stress points. If you
Yeah.
have feelings that are on the bottom left, that's still stress points, but less.
But less. Yeah.
Okay, if you have top right, you still have a lot of stress points, but it's not as damaging as the top left one. And you want to be on the bottom right. You see
So,
what I mean? So
yeah.
your behaviors need to be on the bottom right instead of the other areas, basically. And
Yeah.
it's okay to it's all like, okay, if you get a little bit sad, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're like super depressed, it's going
It
the
caused a lot of
sympathetic
stress.
system, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna cause a lot. So it's all like a numbers game also. But
Yeah.
the whole idea is that what Jim is telling you basically is if you deal with your underlying factors, which
Mm-hmm.
are the behaviors that create those high arousal emotions in you,
Mm-hmm.
and to switch around those to make them be emotions that are calming and relaxing, low arousal. I
Mm-hmm.
see Jim smiling. Okay. So if you'd like switch them around, that's all you need to do. And because most of our stress points come from our behaviors, that's like the absolute way to reduce stress.
Yeah. And that makes
So
sense.
so, for example, like one of the things I've heard you struggle with is you react too much to your symptoms with fear or with
Yeah.
angst. Angst. Ah, I can't say that word.
Thanks.
Okay. Angst. Okay. Yeah. So that's a behavior that causes what? Top left emotions on the
Yeah.
circle.
And
So
stress.
acceptance doesn't cause stress points. It causes rest points.
I know, and I was doing so
So
awesome with acceptance like
yeah,
last year. I mean, it was like I was even helping Patty out with acceptance and stuff. It's like it was great, and then all of a sudden, I just like I don't know. Now it's really hard to accept it. It's like back
yeah,
and
yeah,
forth.
yeah. sometimes acceptance means just look at it with a poker face.
I started to get worse, and then I got scared because my symptoms got
Yeah.
a little different and worse. I'm thinking this isn't the way my symptoms were 2 years ago or a year ago. They've definitely
I, ca-
gotten worse.
if that reassures
And it
you,
scared me.
Janice, let me reassure you on something.
Yeah,
I've
Janice, but
struggled.
I mean, Jim talks all the time that the body can be like a bucking bronco. I mean, just all over this. I mean, it's erratic. I mean, you are going to have symptoms change day to day. I mean, you are.
Yeah. And the
Everybody
thing is
does.
that
We all do.
in all the hyperstimulation bouts that I had, Janice, there was not one time where I did not have unpredictable symptoms. And I can tell you, it got to a point because I was kind of afraid with a little bit of health anxiety at one point in my life. And it got to a point where it's like, even need to go to search on anxiety center. I was like, yeah, that is 100% stress. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's something different. It's like,
I
I just
know,
trusted
because
it.
I always start laughing when Jim's like, "Get your symptoms checked out." And I'm like, "Jim, I can't go back.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
can't
do
go
that
back to the
either. I
doctor for
know.
anything
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah, yeah.
ever."
I stopped going to doctors that was it for me. No more searching. No more
Yeah.
searching. I'm done. If it is something, let it kill me. I don't care, but I'm not going back. I'm not. And like I do that now kind of because of my eyes are just so, and derealization and all that. You know how your eyes are affected. I got like Superman vision, and it's just
Yeah.
freaky. And well, should I go back to the eye doctor anyway? Because
Yeah.
I'm 68. I need to go back and get my eyes checked. And I don't know. It's like, no, I don't want to go down that road right now. I don't
Yeah,
want to do it.
but the reason it's, you know what the reason is, maybe that's gonna help you, that the symptoms change and fluctuate when you have hyperstimulation. It's only because it's so on overdrive and it's mismanaging its chemicals inside. That's
Oh,
all.
definitely.
Yeah,
This and
yeah,
I
the
and I
That's
misfire.
all.
Yeah,
I
Jim
read
talks
that on
about that, the
Jim's.
misfire and
Yep,
the
Yeah, and
and
it just
misfire and here and
misfires.
fire in there.
that helps me, Jim, to read that when I go back over to look at the vision stuff. And then when my eyes start getting really bad, I'm thinking, okay, I'm really stressing my eyes here, and that's why they're getting more blurry and like I
Yeah.
can't focus and stuff.
Well,
When
just
I calm down, they're not that bad.
yeah. So it's
And
important to have a medical checkup yearly and eyes,
mhm,
especially as you get older, to make sure everything's still going there. But if you do that, you also have
mhm,
that to contain with. It's like, okay, I've been
yeah,
checked out,
and
everything's fine. This is just my
but see,
anxiety.
and my problem with my eyes too is I had central serous retinopathy, which is water on the retina. That was years ago. Well, it caused scarring, and so it does cause some like visual distortion a little bit and stuff. But then I keep having to myself, okay, you had that visual distortion before you got your dizziness.
Yeah.
You had that weirdness when you were working. Remember going down the hall, how things looked weird? You just thought it was funny and didn't bother you, weren't afraid of it, and it went away. I tell myself these things.
Yeah.
But Jim, your brain wants to go down that rabbit hole. It's just like, oh my gosh.
And
Do they
that's where you,
convince you though?
And
Do
he's
you find them
right.
convincing? You need to find them convincing. Containment statements, if they don't convince you, they do
Yes,
nothing. They
that's
do
right.
nothing. You
That's
need
right.
to, it's like saying like stories to yourself just for the
Hmm.
sake of saying them. But if you find them convincing, even if it's 30-40% convincing,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
it's you're getting to the work. Now you're getting to the
yeah.
work.
And that's
That's
what
what I'm
that's
saying.
what I do. I look at the inconsistencies of it, and I tell myself, like you said, okay, I had that way before I had dizziness, so it's not a part of it, but you feel like it is because your vision always had a lot to do with your balance and
Yeah, but you
all that.
feeling like it is, but you feeling like it is doesn't mean it actually is.
But
That's
it's
emotional
not.
reasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I read what Jim wrote too about how the neurons and everything affect the eyes, and even cold
Yep.
weather can make your eyes blurry because it causes your vein, causes it to constrict and your muscles to constrict in your eyes, and so yeah, you just have to constantly convince yourself it's um but
Yep.
but to think Jim had all those, you had just about every one of those symptoms, right, Jim?
everyone.
That you
Yep.
put on there. And I want to ask you, whenever you put all the dizziness ones on there, which is me, with the trampoline walking and the sinking in the floor and the
Yep.
pulling, gravitational pulling, heavy legs and whatever, it's all on there. And I'm thinking, did Jim have that? And
Yep.
I told Stacy, I said, did Jim really have all that? Did he have that with the dizziness? He goes, Jim's not going to lie and put that on there. And I said, I know he's not, but it's just like,
I had them as well. I had them as
Yep.
well.
you did.
They're
Okay.
more
But it was
common than
like,
most people think. Yeah.
I
yeah.
had all of them, except
And then I,
hallucinations.
And then I asked Jim, "Can you put more of the dizzy simp that you had on there on your thing?" And then when I watched the second one, I thought he didn't put all of them on there. oh my gosh, does that mean he didn't have them or he didn't have this? I said, no, he probably just didn't want to have to go through the whole thing again when you can look on the website and just see.
Yeah, we link to the symptoms, the page, because I could spend hours talking about
Oh
that symptom.
God,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to apologize to you if I get crazy on him sometimes, and I say, Jim, did you have this? Did you have that? I try not to do that because I don't want to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
So I just
And
want you to know.
yeah, well, we're going through and rewriting a lot of the symptoms now just because there's new research coming out. It doesn't really change much. It's just we're adding a few things to make it more sensible to
Hmm.
people. But I had everything that's at the website personally, and a lot of them were severe. My time with anxiety disorder was brutal. So when people are distressed about your symptom, yeah, because they are brutal, and
Yeah.
24/7, and the dizziness was one of my worst because I hated it and because it
Yeah.
infected so much and it never left. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's like, I have to joke about it sometimes. I do because I literally sometimes, Jim, feel like a marionette puppet. My
Yeah.
legs and my hands feel like a puppet, like someone's got me on a string. And so I imagine that I think, oh God, this is just too funny. Okay. And when I mention it
Yeah.
to people who have the same issues, they get a kick out of it and they laugh. They go, yeah, that does. That's you feel like a marionette puppet,
Yeah. Pretty much.
but
Yeah.
it's all there. And we know that it's all
Yeah.
central nervous system related and what's causing it. We
Yeah.
do know that.
And regular medical checkups can reassure you that there's nothing else going on. Because as we get older, we develop stuff. That's just how it is.
Yeah,
So,
and my doctor I have now, my other one, she ended up retiring, and this one's not really like it's good. Well, I can put you on this
yeah,
med,
I
and
know.
it's not an SSRI. And I go, yeah, I know my sister's on that one, and I don't really want to. I don't
Yeah.
want to go there. I'm med phobia anyway, but
Yeah.
my sister's been on SSRIs and stuff for 20 years, and she's a mess. She's a mess.
Yeah. Well, Janice, I'm
So
going to have to move
okay,
on
all
because
right.
I
I'm
still want
so
to talk with
sorry.
Marguerite. No, no problem. I want to talk with Marguerite before I have to get up off the chair.
My husband's having hip issues now really bad. He can't hardly walk. So I
Oh,
understand. Yep. I'm thinking of you when I see him walking and crying.
well, tell you what, get those replacements if you need them because they are miracles. So
Yeah.
I'm back and
Thank
walking
you.
again, putting lots of steps in each day and feeling good, but I just can't sit for that long in this position. So
Well, God bless you. Yeah.
you're more than welcome.